Tamer, and thanks for being here. By the way, Murphy's Law, my connection is saying it's unstable, so I'm hoping it's not going to let us down. Otherwise, I will connect with data.
I think it's okay.
Yes, I mean, yeah, but it was like if you don't hear me well at some point, drop me a message and I will change. Okay, so these are, well, supernovas. I will explain you later what it is. So these are our corporate colors, and you will see we use them through the presentation. So a bit on me and Alcaine. So currently my occupations, I work at EIT Food. I'm coordinator for supernovas. More on this later, and specifically involved in two activities that have to do with having more women into investment, venture capital, but also other types of investment. I'm also an innovation and entrepreneurship advisor, and I'm an entrepreneurship professor at IE. And then my background in the past, I actually worked in venture capital for quite a few years. Funnily, by chance, I don't think it was by design also, but in a fund with a strong female presence. So the CEO was a woman, and I was the only investment director for most of my time. And then briefly there was another guy, which by the way didn't perform, so he left us quickly. So yeah, I don't think at the time it was a decision they made. It was more a matter of the people that joined the fund at the individual level. And I have also worked in management consulting, and I have been advising different organizations around entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurs themselves, but also like incubators or corporations that wanted to work with entrepreneurship. Okay, so who is EIT? EIT is the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So it's one key branch of the EU in terms of innovation. So we are funded by the EU, although we have a mandate for financial sustainability. So most of our activities are free, which doesn't mean that they will continue to be free, because we have this mandate to be sustainable in the midterm. So we are organized in 9 different verticals. We call them KICs, which are knowledge communities. And then supernovas is actually a cross KIC, which means that it's managed by more than one of us. So the 3 of our communities: food, manufacturing, and urban mobility. And it's also managed for all of the verticals. Well, it depends on the activity, but we have this cross sectors focus. And we have in general a dual focus. One is to bring more women into the ecosystem, in particular into the investment side of the ecosystem. And also to support women who are already entrepreneurs, both at the company and at the personal level. So I will go into the activities at the end. Okay, so I wanted to spend like 1 minute on venture investment. I'm not sure how comfortable you are with the concept. So please, either if you need me to clarify something here, or if you need to stop through the session or whatever, please do so, especially if there are terms that you don't understand. Also, I'm very happy for you to intervene with examples or questions or whatever as we go through. You don't have to wait until the end. Okay, so we know that when a company is young, a startup, it's difficult for them to access the typical sources of funding that other companies could reach, like, I don't know, a bank loan, or going public, or whatever, going to the IPO, etc. So most of these startups are actually getting equity funding, unless the entrepreneur is wealthy himself or herself, or they can manage to start making money quickly through the company. They are going to be needing this funding in equity. That means that whoever is providing the funding is becoming a shareholder in the company. Okay? And that has a lot of implications in terms of how decisions are going to be made, etc. So they will take an equity stake, which is typically going to be a minority equity stake. And their business model is to invest at a certain valuation and then be able to sell that stake as a higher valuation. Obviously, this doesn't happen in many cases. I guess you have all heard all this, the rate of failure of startups, so 90% or 80%, depending on the country or the statistic. So many of them fail. So the idea is that in those investments where we do well, we should do really, really well to compensate for all the other ones where we fail. So the business model is we invest at a certain valuation, and then we exit at a different valuation. Exit means that the investor makes their stake liquid, They get paid for that stake, either because they sell that stake to, for instance, another investor. So imagine I hold 20% in a company, so I could be selling that 20% to someone that is interested in having a minority, or jointly, all of the shareholders might be selling the company fully, or might be going public in the stock market. Okay, that's to keep it simple. It can get a little bit more complicated. So when we think of professional investors, we can think of three types of investors. Well, maybe starting with the easiest, which are business angels. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but this is actually comes from the movies, from the Hollywood, when the initial producers would start investing in certain movies individually. So in the world of startups, these are people that are investing their own money. Okay, typically smaller amounts than a fund, but it depends obviously on their wealth, and typically in earlier rounds, in earlier stages of the company. And then if we go into venture capital, so in venture capital, we are going to have a company. This is the venture capital management company, which is owned by what we call general partners, or GPs for short. And these guys are not, well, they are contributed part of their own money, which might be maybe 2% of the total fund, but most of the fund, remaining 98%, they are getting it from investors. So they will go, which are called limited partners or LPs. So we'll go, for instance, to a government. So the pension fund in Norway is like a huge investor in different funds, or to a pension fund, or to a corporation, or to a wealthy family, to whoever we think might be interested in investing with us. So we will constitute a fund that is made of money from many different investors, and then we invest that money on their behalf. Okay, when we talk about corporate venture capital, typically it's going to be the funding comes from only one company. So, for instance, if you think of Statoil, right, which is the Norwegian oil company, they actually have their own corporate venture capital fund. So it is their money only. There is only one investor, and it's an internal team that is managing the investments. Okay, it can be an internal team which is employed by the same company, or sometimes they separate this into a different subsidiary or company for whatever reason. So is this clear to everyone? Any questions? No? Okay.
No, thanks. Yeah.
By the way, guys, I feel free to use the chat. If you see that there is something on the chat and I haven't seen it, I wouldn't mind if someone gives me a shout. I will try to keep an eye on it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so well, the starting part of the session why we are here, why Supernovas is here, is because there is a gender imbalance in VC. So I'm going to show you some data from this report. European Women in VC is a non-for-profit organization, and they are super active, and they are promoting very much gender diversity in venture capital. So they publish one yearly report. So they are working on the one for 2022. It will be published this year. So this is from their previous one, which was published last year. So remember, the GPs are the people in the venture capital funds who are partners. In Europe, only 15% of them are female in general, on average, right, on the whole of Europe. Also, it depends on how you define GPs, because many of these people, actually 70%, are not actually proper GPs because they don't own the company, the venture capital company, and then don't have access to carried interest. Carried interest, for short, is so I told you these companies are investing money on the behalf of other investors. So this is like a success commission. Okay, so if I'm making certain returns, certain profitability, the venture capital company is going to keep a share of that. Okay, and that money is going to be distributed amongst the key people in the team. So in this case, we are saying 15% of the GPs are female, about 70% of those. So that's going to be around 9–10% in total have access to this carried interest. So they are really in positions where they can really make decisions. Plus, if things go well, they would be really making good money. Okay, venture capital is an industry where people are well paid in general, but what makes a difference is this carried interest when you are successful. If you are making money for your investors and you get part of that, that can actually make, people can get really, really It can be a nice bonus, or it can be becoming really, really wealthy if you were really lucky and did good decisions. Okay. If we think of the investment committee, so typically in venture capital, there is like a separate committee that might be formed by certain members of the venture capital company, but they are also going to have external advisors and members. So more than 80% of them, so around 83, are all male. So there's not even one woman in the committee. And also these female GPs, on top of being like very, very few, they are typically working in a smaller funds, which means that overall they have control over a lower share of the pie. Okay, so if they are 15% of the number, they only have control of 9% of the assets under management. So the assets under management is a technical term. It means the money that is venture capital has available to invest, right? The assets that they manage for their investors. Okay, so this is the average for Europe, not only the European Union plus the UK. So if we think by region, if you wanted to take a bet, which region do you think might be doing better or worse than the average? Anyone wants to take a bet? You can write on the chat or open your microphones.
If may I contribute here, I think maybe Northern Europe is a bit worse than Southern Europe.
Worse?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, that's actually, I'm going to show you now, but it's actually the intuition would tell us that it might be the other way around, right? Like we always think like Nordic countries, gender equality, right? But actually that is not necessarily the case. So I will show you later. Any other takers or?
Yeah, we have some comments. I think
yes, sorry.
Katrina says that CEE is better.
I will show you now.
Okay. Amina said Spain is better, I think.
Well, I'm going to show you at region level, and then we have certain countries which are doing better. So let me show you. Okay, so this is by region. Okay, and let me explain. Okay, so the dark blue bar, this is the numbers we discussed, the percentage of GPs, number of people who are female compared to the total ones. And then the light blue bar, this is the overall amount that they have under control in assets under management. Okay, the money they have power to decide on, so to say. So if you see, this is the average. If we think of GPs first, actually the only region which is doing better than the average is West. West includes Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and Ireland. Okay, and then everyone else is doing worse. So it goes down to 10%. So actually the UK is not doing better, and everyone else is doing slightly worse. But then if you look at the differences between the number of people and the percentage of money they have under management, look at the change, look at the Nordics. Okay, that's huge. Whilst in Southern Europe, someone was saying Spain, well, in Southern Europe at least, they are less in percentage in terms of number of people, but they control a higher than that number percentage of the money. Okay, so this is also relevant. But also look at the UK. Okay, 13 compared to 5%. So this is also not very promising. So by region, in the Nordics and in Central West Europe is includes Germany, Austria, and Luxembourg. Thing is that in the larger funds, so those with 500 million or more, there are no female GPs at all. So obviously that explains this kind of difference. Okay, if you see here in the Nordics between number of people and management, and money they can have control over. If we think at the country level, actually two countries that are doing very well are France and Sweden. And then if we think of sectors, actually anything connected to life sciences, health, and biotech, the female presence is stronger in general. And these are specific funds where we have a very strong female presence. For instance, Isios, we know them well because they are a very good collaborator of us in one of the programs I will tell you about. And they always had from day one more female partners than male partners, and they continue. I think now it's something like 60 to 40. So it's not only they have female partners, it's they have more female than male partners. Okay, and then which are the consequences? So the issue is that it has consequences in terms of investment and in terms of what kind of money female entrepreneurs are able to raise. So 2021, so 2 years ago, we still don't have data for 2022. It was a record year in terms of venture capital, with more than 100 billion invested in tech companies. So it was a huge increase compared to 2020, which obviously was a very active year with the pandemic and everything. So if we try to think how this money is invested, only 1.8% of it is going to startups that are founded by totally female teams. 9.3% is going to mixed gender teams, so there is at least one woman, and well, it's mixed, women and men, and it could be any combination. And 89% of it is going to all male founded startups. I will show you later data. Obviously, all male founded startups are still a majority of the startups, but not in this proportion. Okay, so women are getting disproportionate less funding compared to their presence in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. This is not necessarily because they are less successful in raising funding, which they are. I will show you now. Maybe also women are going for a smaller type of businesses, so it's easier to self-fund the business with their own money, or it's a type of business where you don't require an investment, right? Like if when the areas in which you require heavy investments are typically very high tech, or biotech, where it takes you years and years to come up with something before you can start selling. But if you are, for instance, launching, imagine a small consulting practice or a small coaching practice where you are selling services, maybe you don't need any funding. You can self-fund yourself. But yeah, there is when companies are going and are talking to the venture capitalists, there is a difference if you are a woman or a man, and there is a bias. So let me tell you. By the way, the situation is not much better in the US. In the US, I could find this is in general. It doesn't specifically say for tech startups. It's in general new startups. So only 2% is going to all women-funded companies, whilst they constitute 30% of the total of startups. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a few data from, this is by Dana Kunz, who is she used to be an entrepreneur and then became a researcher, and she's a professor at the school where I did my MBA, London Business School. So this is a TED Talk. It's like about 4 years old, so it's 40 minutes, so you can listen to it, and it's quite illustrative. So she was doing this research, and it was centered around the regulatory focus. So whether you focus, especially in the context of entrepreneurship, either on promotion versus prevention. Okay, and if you want to listen to some examples, for instance, if we think of customers, if you're asking promotion questions, you will be asking about acquiring, gaining new customers. If you are thinking of a prevention focus, you will be thinking of retention. If you are thinking of the income statement, promotion could be sales. And if you are thinking of prevention, it would be margins. Okay, so what she did is, and she explains that in the TED Talk, so you can go into detail. She went to this huge entrepreneurship event where many entrepreneurs started to raise funding, and she recorded all of the conversations, and then she analyzed those conversations. And then what she found out is that all other circumstances equal, so obviously, the questions might be different if you are a more senior entrepreneur or less senior, if you have been successful or not. But taking all those objective criteria apart, she found out that male entrepreneurs were getting 60% of the questions they got were promotion, whilst for women, they were prevention questions. Okay, so imagine for a man, they would be asking, how are you going to acquire new clients? Whilst for a woman, they would be asking, how are you going to make sure that you are not losing your clients, right? That you are retaining your clients. For a man, questions could be on, how are your sales going to grow? Whilst for women would be like, are your sales going to be profitable? So it looks like, for men, obviously we sales are only interesting if they are profitable, but we are only asking men about like the easier part. We are only asking about one part. So we're assuming that those sales are going to be good. Whilst for women, maybe you are selling a lot, but it's not going to be profitable. Also, in terms of a strategy, for men, they would be asking about the vision and how they see the world and the solution and the market and whatever. And for women, it would be more about the execution, as if either the vision was not so important or they were less confident that they could be able to execute. So regardless of the gender, when you get either a promotion or a prevention question, typically you take the same focus in your answer. So you go for promotion versus prevention. By the way, something that was not very promising was that this bias on the venture capitalist side, there wasn't a big difference between female venture capitalists and male venture capitalists. So that they all would have a bias. So they would all ask differently depending on the gender of the person who was in front of them. So the good news here is that this is actually a skill that can be trained, right? Like how you convert a question, how you make it, well, you obviously address the question, but you try to be positive in the answer and try to turn the conversation into promotion, hoping it will change the direction of the circle. So I know we had a few entrepreneurs. I don't know if we had someone that was exposed to this kind of question. Sorry, I mean, I see your question now. Do this distribution is relatively related to niches? You mean on the previous slide, or if you cannot talk, if you can maybe try to clarify here. Okay, let me go ahead. I will in the previous one.
Yes, the previous one.
Do you mean niches like sectors, or this is I mean, this is in general for all of the tech startups in Europe in 2021. So it would include like biotech, you know, software, food tech, all kinds of technology. I don't know if that's addressing your question.
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So let me move ahead. Okay. So obviously, one question that comes to mind, and the data is not very clear. So I'm telling you, female startups are raising very small portion of the money that is in the market. So the obvious question would be how many female startups there are, right? So this is a study that we commissioned, which we're actually presenting tomorrow. So you can still sign up for the presentation event, and then the study will be public, so you can download it, and it's going to be open to everyone. So we commissioned this study with Dealroom, which is an expert organization in entrepreneurial data, to try to understand how is the landscape of women-founded scale-ups. Okay, so this is actually preliminary findings. Tomorrow you will hear more about the final findings. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so we are happy to welcome you if you would like to join. Okay, so first, in terms of numbers, as you would assume, women are obviously not 50% of the scale-ups are female-led. By the way, what do we mean by a scale-up? We have defined it as a formal startup, so that's a company that is reasonably young, but it has grown, right? Either because it's a business that could be funded by venture capital, as we discussed, but also because it has a team that is already sizable. So they have something between 50 to 500 employees everywhere in general. So we identified around 7,500. 600% of those have at least one female founder. And out of those 600, only 18% are female-only led startups. So all the founders are women, while in the other 82% founders are male. Okay, so if you think of the numbers, so it's 18% of 600. So that's about 115 or so, 115 are female-only founded scale-ups. Okay, but we actually have some good news, and one of the good news is that in terms of value, these companies are growing faster than the average. Okay, so enterprise value is the valuation of the company, and this is how it has evolved in the last 6 years, from 2017 to 2022, 2023. So for the overall scale-ups, it has grown 5.6 times, from 150 to 834 billion. Whilst for women-funded scale-ups, so those with at least one woman, it's 6.5. Okay, so it's nearly 1 time more growth than for the overall group. If we go region by region, well, as you see, this is in terms of value. So the UK is, huge, like it's far, it has a really high weight. But then we have countries that are growing quickly. So Germany, which is already big, and it's also growing quickly. Finland, which is small because usually the market is big, but it's growing very quickly, and also Italy. Okay. And then if you see the numbers, you see that, well, the order of the countries is not necessarily the one you would expect. Obviously, we need to take into account market size, which is very different in different countries in the picture. If we think in terms of percentage, which is going to be easier, so this is the percentage of women-founded scale-ups in terms of value, okay, valuation, not in terms of number of scale-ups. So the leader is Finland, but it's actually followed by Italy, okay, which is maybe not obvious. It's not the first place you would think of, and also Portugal. Okay, so remember we said sometimes Southern European countries are doing better than you would expect or you would assume, right? And actually in the Nordics, the percentages are kind of low. The Nordics and the Baltics, right, which is not what you might expect initially, with the exception of Lithuania, which also has a high percentage. Women are also more active in certain sectors, but those are not necessarily the sectors we think of. When we think, if they ask me about female sectors with strong female presence, maybe food, when I'm working in food, so we know there are many female entrepreneurs, but areas like food or education would seem are going to be the highest ones. Well, it's not necessarily the case. You see they are high in terms of number of startups, but both in terms of number of startups and value, the leading sectors are enterprise software, health, and fintech. Okay, so remember we said in health we are seeing more women on the investment side, so there are also many women on the entrepreneur side. So I think there is a certain correlation in there. And also women have a stronger impact focus. And impact is, well, you know, a few years ago, impact used to be something like a nice to have, or, you know, something many people would see as a kind of softie. I think more and more we are seeing impact and sustainability as a key business driver. And this is, I think this is going to be the key driver in business models in the coming future. Okay, so we see how women-led scale-ups have a much stronger focus on impact than the average, combining both male and female-led. Okay, so, well, summarizing the consequences, I think we all agree that diversity leads to better business decisions. By the way, not only gender diversity, because here we are talking about male, we can probably assume 95% of them in Europe are going to be white male, and you know, maybe they are not so diverse also in other dimensions like age or whatever. So diversity leads to better business decisions. Diversity leads to better investment decisions. I think, well, at least that's my take. Entrepreneurship is not only like an individual good. You know, it's like a company is successful. It's obviously very good for the founders and the investors. They are going to get wealthy. But it's also a social good. You know, they are going to create employment. They are going to bring innovation to the market. They are going to change the way we do things. They are bringing innovation. And obviously, the more diverse the entrepreneurs, the more diverse the innovation that comes to market. So in deep tech, in technological entrepreneurship, most companies are going to be needing funding. So if we are not giving the money to the best founders, if gender is a factor in the decision, it means that we are not making the best decisions. It means that female-led scale-ups cannot be as successful as male-led or mixed gender teams. And then this means that we are overall losing money. Okay? As socially, if we think of money not only as, you know, my investment, my return, but also like how much socially we're investing in something and which kind of return we are getting. Also in terms, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of diversity, innovation, etc. This is a loss to everyone. Okay, so things that are happening, the European Investment Fund, which is also funded by the EU, so this is like our, you know, older cousin. So they have started this policy. They are one of the biggest LPs, so one of the biggest investors in venture capital funds in Europe, or maybe even the biggest one. So they have started this policy where gender criteria is going to be one of the criteria they apply to select in which funds they are going to be investing. So if funds comply with one of these initiatives, at least 1/3 of partners are women, at least 40% of the senior team is female, or at least 40% of the investment committee are female, they get like an extra point in the evaluation. So it's more likely that they will get investment by the EIF. We are also seeing funds that are specifically focused on female founder startups. I know myself a big fan of things like quotas or the like, but that sometimes they are necessary. But I also think in this case, it makes business sense. Like, if the general funds are not paying attention to this and we are saying there are good female entrepreneurs, this is obviously a business opportunity. So these funds are already focusing on that, and it's going to be less competitive than other type of groups of teams. And then finally, so Supernova. So this is our program. So what do we do? Well, we have basically 4 activities. Well, one of them is already ongoing. So I'm going to tell you about the ones where we are still recruiting participants and people. So one is Women to Invest, where we train women with technical education in venture capital, and then we help them start a career in venture capital, so get an internship or an analyst position. So this is going to be our 2nd year. The first year of 2022 actually went very well. We got lots of attention and we got more internships than we thought we could. This is a new activity, Women Investors Network. So there are not enough female investors, and we are thinking of female investors investing in female entrepreneurs. So we'll tell you later the details. And then Rocket Up, this is for female-led startups. So this is for entrepreneurs. And this is for companies that want to grow international. So it's a program to help them open their next market, right? Decide, okay, so I'm a, I don't know, French startup. So my next move is going to be Spain. Okay, so they first is identifying that Spain is the country where they should move next. And second is preparing the strategy to actually open the market. Okay, so Women to Invest, this is the one that I lead directly myself. So this is training and access. So we are getting people trained, and then participants are also getting interviews with venture capital funds. So the call for participants is open at the moment. It will be open until May the 31st. And we also have a launch info session next week on May the 9th. For the Women Investors Network, we're trying to build this community, and it's built on 3 pillars. One is training, so both for women working in venture capital and for business angels. And this can be business angels who are already investing, or women who haven't invested, but they are thinking of taking, doing their first investment. So for the junior venture capitalist professionals, we plan to launch the first session of the series on the end of June 26th. Business angels for junior ones, July 1st, and for more experienced ones, September the 1st. We are also giving access to deal flow, and this is deal flow by female startups. So on June the 21st, we'll have one on food and health. The registration is open both for startups and for investors. We'll have one on manufacturing on mid-September and one on mobility and sustainability by the end of November. And then obviously this is a community, so these are the key pillars, but there is also networking and sharing and maybe co-investing and everything that comes with it. And finally, Rocket Up. So this is to help startups become international. So it involves, it helps the startups decide which is going to be their next market, and also prepare the strategy, and actually ends up with having their first mission or visit to the country, visiting clients. So they receive training sessions. They also have presentations by entrepreneurs who have been through that process before, and then each startup gets what we call an internationalization squad. So this includes industry experts, but also regional experts that will help them achieve this objective. So the registrations are open until June the 8th, and there is an info webinar on May the 15th. Okay, so just to summarize, so these are the actions that we have ongoing. So there is the report, which is going to be presented tomorrow. So you are still on time if you would like to join us. This is at 9:30 a.m. I didn't mention the time. And then the calls for the other programs. Okay, and yeah, that was it on my side. So it was a bit more than the half hour that I had planned for. So happy to debate, listen to your questions, opinions, experiences.
Thanks a lot, Anna, for this interesting talk. Actually, I have a comment and small question to follow up. The comment is to link your lecture with the previous lecture, or the comments of the previous lecture. And the question is related to the different opportunities that you posted at the end. So one of the questions that we got at the end of our last lecture that came from colleagues from Middle East. They are asking about opportunities for people from Middle East, North Africa, to get funds supported and start to launch their startup. Now you are presented a list of these opportunities. So my comment to them is just to link the two lectures. So actually now here we like go further step and build on the previous one. And my question to you related to this list of different opportunity, is this open only for the EU citizen, or it's open for international community or international ladies who can apply for such type of?
Okay, so in general, it might depend on a case by case, but in general, so it's open because we are funded by Horizon Europe, so it's European funding. So it's open to startups or nationals, depending on whether it's a program allocated as startups or individuals, of the countries that fund Horizon Europe. And that doesn't only include, it obviously includes the 27 European Union countries, but also there are a number of associated countries, which at the moment is 15. So actually the UK is not one of those at the moment, but you have places like Turkey, Israel, Norway, CE, right, like Albania, Moldavia, Serbia, etc. So we actually have you can check the list on the, well, either on Horizon Europe or also in our terms and conditions, we have the exact list. And we are actually getting, a few questions from people who are either based in Europe, but they are not nationals, because we have decided to go with the passport criteria, not residency. So far we are not considering making an exception. In our case, the thing is that we are, it's the nature of our funding, right? So it wouldn't, obviously if we open the scope, there will be people interested all over the world, but we can only train so many people.
Yes, I got the point. So for now, this is still limited to the EU somehow, because the funding agent is the EU.
Well, EU and the associated countries.
And
so
the associated country, and the associated country, of course. And our colleagues from Middle East who are some of them is here. Actually, there is some countries from Middle East, like Tunisia, I think is one of the associated country in the EU. Egypt was one of them. I don't know if they already signed the agreement or not, but I think it was one of the associated country in the previous call. So maybe again there is here a sort of opportunities for all the people who are attending this series of lectures. Good. So thanks a lot for answering my question. Maybe I can open the space now for our colleagues. Katrina, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anna. This was really insightful. I guess I have two questions, and I understand if you don't have the answers, but I will ask anyways. So I guess my first question would be if there's any research, any study, or any, scientifically proven in a way reason for the male-dominated investment committees to scrutinize more female entrepreneurs. And like whether that's something, like what are basically the reasons why they ask different questions to men and to women, and the second question would be whether you think there's anything to do about it, or whether there are any programs, any like I guess lectures or education or whatever sort of thing to kind of work with the men in venture capital to change this.
Okay, so on the first one, well, I'm not an academic myself, so there might be research that I'm not aware of. So I wanted to share this one, which is actually, it's a mix of business versus scientific research. This one on the bias. My take is that it's not, I think gender diversity is not something that you only deal with when women are making career decisions. I think this is ingrained in society. So I don't think these men are like, let's be unfriendly. Or, remember, it's not only men, it's also women, like female venture capitalists. It's not like, let's be tougher on women, right? Especially with the current climate. I think this is something that is ingrained in your education, in your history, whatever. Also, I think it's a consequence. Obviously, there are still more male investors than female investors, so women are still the exception. So maybe it's a matter of them having less experience working with female entrepreneurs. By the way, I didn't, in this report that I quoted initially, you can also see how this is a big conversation right now in venture capital. Like many venture capitalists say, like, it's super important to have diversity, but then the numbers are still what they are, right? So I think it's a matter of, obviously, one thing is to say, yeah, we need to have more women, and the other thing, but also we need to have the best professionals. So maybe there is also a question of, are women, are they getting enough interest from women? Like, are there enough women going to interviews, right? Because maybe women are self-selecting themselves, either because they think it's a tough life, because they think they are not going to be selected, or because we are not telling them about venture capital in their careers. For instance, in Women to Invest, we talk to women in technical careers, and many of them have heard nothing about investment or funding, and they have profiles that are really interested in this space. So, I think that's also something we can work about. And also the investors in the fund, so these limited partners or LPs, right now there is a strong focus on ESG and gender diversity, right, which are also very connected, because gender diversity is also connected to governance, right? So there is a lot of conversations going on. And then what can you do? I don't know if you mean, Katarina, like at the individual level, or, well, I think one thing is to be, if you want to access the industry, to train yourself. And then, for instance, we have decided to focus on the junior side of the lower side of the pyramid. By the way, on the junior levels, there is not parity, but numbers are quite more equal. So, and that changes as we're going to senior positions. So it might be a matter of time. So those women need to progress. Or it might be a question that a matter of those people, joining as junior, and then the male stay and develop a career, and then the female leave for whatever reason, right? So that might also be part of the picture. So our program is focused on the junior entrants, but then there are also other programs which are focused on the upper level, right? On having more women who can launch their own funds and BGPs. But obviously they need to convince other people. First, they need to have the experience, right? Not because you're a woman, because raising a venture capital fund is something very, very difficult that can take many, many years. And it requires a certain experience. So it requires that you invested your own money, or it requires that you have been exposed to that kind of activity. So obviously we need to have more women with that experience aiming to do that, which is not easy. But there are also programs that are trying to train and incentivize women going very senior, right? Like maybe typical path is an entrepreneur that is very successful, so they sell their companies and they make a lot of money, and then they decide to start investing either as business angels, or they create a fund and they start investing professionally. Let me go. Sorry, there are a few questions on the. Sorry, yeah, ESG.
Yeah. There is
ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So this is a big trend in investment right now, not only in venture capital, but in any kind of investment, also in funds that invest in companies that are quoted in the stock market.
I have a question related to Katrina one. Do you have a statistic about the age of the women who are go to start their startup? Like if they are young students, 20, 25 age, 30, 40, what's that? Do you have any statistic around the age of them?
Well, I saw that this probably should have to be no, but then something that also, because in this program, my activity, we don't focus so much on entrepreneurs. I can see if we can find information to share, but then as a professor of entrepreneurship, something that I can share is that obviously when we think of entrepreneurs, I think everyone or many people tend to think of young people, like in their 20s or 30s, early 30s. But then there was an article by Harvard Business Review that the most successful entrepreneurs, the average age when I started their startup was actually 45. Okay, so
this is in general, like men and women, or women?
Yeah, it was in general.
In general, okay.
I'm not sure if there is a difference. Obviously, there can be, life circumstances can be different, and then it's not going to be different. But yeah, I don't have, or I don't remember seeing segregated data by gender.
Because if I remember correctly, some time ago, maybe a year ago or so, I was in discussion, and this discussion was about the age of the woman when she start to engage in startup activity. And during this discussion, someone brought to me that it's most probably after 35, 40 they start to engage in such type of activity, maybe because of family issue or something like this. But this is my question based on like if you have number for that or not. So thank you very much.
No, well, I guess it can be different reasons, right? It can also be that women prefer to be better equipped, you know, have more experience and more knowledge before they start a business, while maybe men are, I don't know, you can say braver or bolder or stupid, right? And they
naive
can do it when they
yeah.
are 24. And,
yes.
And still, but also what happens is that because the environment is more conducive for men to be successful, maybe even if they are younger, have much less in their, you know, backpack when they start a company, they can still succeed.
Yep.
Yeah, Karin.
Yeah, please, Karen.
Okay. Hello. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. And I need to get that one down. Yeah. So, if I understand correctly, like in every other field, we agree that having more women in venture capitalism will be better for the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have all the different studies that said that it will be better, and we don't have enough women. Now, the question is, in the corporate world, pretty much companies have kind of, lack of better word, forced to include more women. There is a lot of program and they don't have a choice. I understand that the quota issue is always very sensitive. However, the way I see it is like, unless you push a little bit of the woman into the business world, another area, they're never going to get there. We've been trying for a few centuries. It's still very slow. What do you recommend would be for venture capitalisms to have more women? Like concretely, all the numbers are there, all the studies are there. Concretely, what is possible? My understanding is many women resist going into a business or venture capital the way the men set up the business. So what could be done to help women set up their own ways of doing venture capitalism?
Let me go back to the slide with the EIF, because that's an interesting topic. Okay, so the EIF is very committed to having more funds with female women in senior positions, but this is only one of the criteria they are looking for. Obviously, then those women need to meet many other criteria, like they need to be, you know, they need to have, typically these LPs, they want to have a team with more than at least 2 or 3 founders with the right experience, with a balanced experience, with experience themselves, that are happy. Well, first, these people are asked to contribute a lot of money themselves to the fund. So it can be, you know, it depends. So imagine you are fundraising a 50 million euros fund, which is a typical small first-time fund. So they would be hoping that the founders are contributing something between 2 or 3% of that fund. So that's, you know, 1.5 million. And imagine there are 2 or 3 founders, so they are asking for a sizable investment, right? Personal investment. So you need to have the money, and then there are mechanisms where you can do that against your future salary, but you need to have the money and you need to be able to invest it. Also, you need to have experience and track record. It's not because you are a woman they are going to be, no, okay, then it doesn't matter. So I think quotas in this sector, the problem is that venture capital fund cannot just decide, okay, let's bring more women, right? Because they need to think, okay, I need to bring someone who is a partner, who is also going to be able to invest with, you know, maybe that's not so much a discussion, but it's also going to be able to help me fundraise for my new fund. So, you know, these companies, imagine we start up venture capital fund, so we are investing 15 million euros. So probably the second year we are investing this fund, we are already starting to raise for the next one, right? Which ideally is going to be bigger. Maybe it's going to go to 100 million. So you want a partner that is able to invest, but it's also able to fundraise. And well, able. I don't want to put the blame on the person, because maybe the person is able to fundraise, but then maybe the people on the other side of the table, which in this case are the limited partners or investors in the funds. Maybe they are not necessarily ready for that. If you, in this report that I mentioned, there is also a lot of data on that. And in that side, there is also a majority of men and many women, even the women who are present, sometimes they don't have access to, you will be talking to a woman, but she won't be the one making the decision to invest in your fund. Like she will have to go to a committee or whatever, right? So I think it's not that easy, and I think the pressure has to come from the limited partners. Even if well, in this case, the EIF is in a good position because they have public funding, so it's, you can think this is somehow connected to public policies. But you know, what can the governments do? You know, it's difficult for them to incentivize venture capital in general. So to incentivize that funds will recruit more women, I think it's not going to be easy, right? Like we have this all the discussion with the. Well, actually, one way to also help would be when you are in venture capital and you invest in the startups, you become a member of the board of the startups. So if there is a rule to force a certain female presence in boards of directors, indirectly that might have an influence, because very often those people are people in the team, like senior people in the team. So that would also help the circle. But you know, that's a big discussion and different countries are taking different positions. But yeah, I do think there are many people trying to change this, and I think this is changing. Early changing, maybe a little bit too slow, but I think it should improve.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anna, for this answer. Actually, I have a follow-up for this question, Karin.
Welcome, Karin.
I will steal the question, but comment from Katrina. Could you share the slide, Anna?
Yeah, I already told Tamaria. I will send them in a PDF version so that it's lighter. I will send it to Katrina and Tamara.
Thanks a lot, Anna. Yeah. Actually, I would like to steal the question from Karin and tweak it a bit about what universities and the academic sector can do in order to solve this problem. Like, well,
I think this, as I mentioned before, I think gender is very much, well, both gender and entrepreneurship are very much an educational issue. So if we want to have more entrepreneurs, it's not enough to tell people in university, look, entrepreneurship is a very nice option. You need to do so many other things. Like you need to create the role models since children are a little. You need to have the policies, the incentives. So it's quite complicated, right? And there are some countries that have been very good in doing that, but they tend to be small countries, right? Or in very specific circumstances. Places like Israel, which is obviously a very unique situation, or also Estonia, right? Estonia is doing really, really well. The Nordics in general, Sweden too. But Estonia is a tiny country of 1.5 million inhabitants, right? Like it's much easier to do things there than it would be in a larger country. So I lost track of what I want. Can you repeat the question, Tamer? I lost myself in
the again, the question about the role of the higher education institute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So I actually, we were talking before the session, Tamer and I. So last year when we were promoting women to invest, we actually thought the universities would be much more prone, because last year we also had another activity to help women get into startups as employees. And we're getting that good reception. So I think there was a matter of the calendar, but also I think universities, I think they could be paying more attention to helping their students with career and professional decisions. And also maybe they are focusing too much still on the typical ways out, right? Like corporations or academic, research, academia, whatever, or maybe even consulting. But they are not necessarily talking about venture capital. Like I studied business and I never heard of venture capital until I went to business school for my master's. So if people don't hear about this, it's difficult that they are going to be considering it as an option. So, you know, many the type of education that is very valued, like, you know, PhDs in biotech, medical doctors, engineers, maybe they are not even paying attention to this. Maybe they are not even considering it. Then obviously there could be the decision, and this is a very personal decision, that a woman might decide to go for, might prefer to go for a woman or a man, right? It's not necessarily a gender thing, but the person might want to go for an easier life. And this is obviously, I think it's one of the most interesting things you can do professionally, but it's also tough, right? It's like many things, it's very likely that things won't go as you expect. And that has many many consequences. So I think if when we are already at university level, I think what universities could do, and maybe we can help with that, is like, yeah, bring people, at least, maybe something as easy as having a lecture or a session with people having different experiences with an entrepreneur, and maybe not necessarily a super successful entrepreneur, right? Or maybe someone who was successful but first failed. So I think when you talk entrepreneurship, you need to be very honest with the chances of success. But maybe also a woman or a man who is working in venture capital, who is made it to a senior position, maybe an entrepreneur who has been successful as an entrepreneur and then has become a venture capitalist. So I think that could be like helping on the career level, but also maybe thinking of the syllabus, of the academic content, right? Like, because someone is studying a technical career, doesn't exclude that course, that degree has a certain content in business or, because it's very likely that those people will end up working in a business. So maybe they are going to be working in a technical position, but if they want to progress and they have certain level of knowledge, that's going to help. And obviously, it's difficult to get into venture capital. That's why we are having this course. Because for the course, we don't require any previous investment experience or training. But obviously, if you don't have that kind of experience or training, it's difficult that they will recruit you, because they are going to be telling you about, income statement and profit and margin and this and that. If you don't know what they are talking about, it's going to be a very tough first day to venture capital.
Yeah, good. More question from our audience.
Leave you with my email in case you want to contact me.
Yeah. For the lecture that or the event for tomorrow, we can post this link to our social media.
I think you can still, let me check.
Yeah, if we
you can still register, actually. I'm going to try live here.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think it's still open. Okay. So I think you should be able to register up until the last minute. Might be wrong, but I think today it's still open.
Okay, good. So maybe we can post it on our social media.
In any case, tomorrow is a short webinar to present the report, but then the report will be available free of so you can download it in our website. So even if you cannot come to the event, you can access the report.
Super. Good. Thanks a lot, Anna, for this super interesting discussion and talk and brainstorming. As I told you that I would like to follow up me and you and Katrina about this with the context of Seed Plus project. But really, I would like to thank you a lot for that. I would like to thank all of our audience. I can see increase in the number of the people who are attending our series of seminars, and this indicates that we have sort of success. And this success is built on the shoulder of our guest lecturers for what they are giving us from knowledge. So I would like to thank all of you. Karen, thanks a lot, Karen, for your contribution, and see you. I think we have actually a lecture very close in the 9th of May. So in like 5 days from now, 6 days from now, it will be mainly about diversity in workspace. So it will be same topic somehow, but a bit different angle to see how leaders and different organization deal with underrepresented group within the workspace. So I hope that you will join this lecture in the 9th of May. And once more, thank you very much. And if there is no question, I would like to close the session today. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. It was my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I will send you email you the presentation now.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.